ألا من كنت مولاه فهذا علي مولاه، اللهم وال من والاه وعاد من عاداه.
And I'm originally from Warren, Michigan in the States, but I currently reside in London, Ontario, and I'm 44 years old. I have one brother. He's 2 years older than I am, and he lives in North Carolina with his wife and his son. And we actually are not really in communication that much. I see him usually once a year. I had a bit of a difficult childhood. I guess I have some good memories. Like, we used to play games, card games and that with my parents, my brother and I. But it was full of challenges and difficulties. But my parents, knowing what I know now, I know my parents did the best that they could at the time. But yes, it was moving from the States to Canada when I was 9 was a good thing for me. I was raised Roman Catholic, and when I was little, like when we lived in Michigan still, we went regularly to church, and I went to Sunday school as well. And then when we moved to Canada, I started going to a Catholic school. And personally, I loved it. Like, I loved going to Catholic school. I loved going to Mass. Not everything was logical to me, though. Even when I was little, the idea of original sin was very disturbing to me. The thought that if a baby died without being baptized, excuse me, that they would go to hell was like, I remember questioning, like I was in maybe grade 4, grade 5, and I remember questioning the teacher over and over again, because I'd held babies and they're so pure and there's no way, that didn't make any sense to me at all. And finally he just stopped, like when I'd raise my hand, he just stopped asking me because I couldn't wrap my head around it. It didn't make any sense. It was illogical to me that a baby would go to hell if it wasn't baptized. So I mean, I did question it quite a bit, but I still loved the foundation. And in grade 6, I started going to morning mass and like reading at the services and stuff like that. And I got to read on Palm Sunday, which was quite an honor for someone my age. So I loved it. I loved going to church very much. Up until around grade 7 and grade 8. So in grade 7, a young priest came to the church, and I'm not sure the right way to phrase this. We became romantically involved, which is of course quite inappropriate for him to have done with a 12-year-old. I wasn't the only one either. And he was just recently charged and sent to jail for 4 years as a result of the abuse that happened back then. There was 4 of us that came forward and charged him, but there was probably dozens of us. And so after that happened, it was very devastating to me, because I felt like I had lost God. Like when he stopped seeing me, I was crushed. I had, like, he had led me to believe that someday we were going to be married and all these other ridiculous things. Like, at the time it was, but as a 12-year-old, and he didn't represent God to me, but in the Roman Catholic religion, like, you're led to believe that the priest is like the representative speaks for God, essentially, which is of course ridiculous. But so it was very devastating to me at the time. Like, I felt like I had lost God. I felt like I was just lost. I was so lost. And of course I wasn't able to tell my parents about it. I didn't tell anyone. None of us did at the time, even though we all knew who the other girls were. And he got caught at that time, way back then, and they just moved him to a different parish. Instead of removing him from the priesthood, they just moved him to a different parish, where he continued to do what he did with girls in that area as well. It was like, I even tried to kill myself, like when I was in grade 9. It was that devastating for me. But that was a turning point for me. Fortunately, I'm here right now, and I basically just struggled through those years in between, like from the time I was 12 until the time I was 42, 43. But it was always, like looking back now, I can see that God was always there. I was so protected, because even though I had been through this devastating thing and made poor choices, I never really got into any serious trouble. I did some things that didn't make sense, that I'm sure my parents were extremely confused as to why I was making these choices, but it was never, I was never in danger. I never sunk low as some of the other girls. And I can look back now and just, God was always there. I was the one who had turned away from God. He hadn't turned away from me. Prior to just a year ago, last December, I really had absolutely no idea about Islam at all. I know I had heard about Muslims during 9/11, but it wasn't anything. I didn't know anyone. I had formed no opinion. If somebody had asked me at that time, I would have been, I know nothing about it. I think they don't eat pork, and they wear headscarves, and that's the extent of my knowledge. I had nothing, and I had no interest in it either. But 2 or 3 years ago, I knew that I missed God in my life, and I was considered going back to Catholicism, but it was poison for me. Like the fact that what had happened, that they'd let it happen, that it continues to happen to this day. It's just, there's no accountability. That has nothing to do with God. I'm sorry, in my opinion, that has nothing to do with God. I looked into Judaism very briefly, but it was just like, this is not, so I was just kind of lost. I knew I had attended a meditation retreat, so I looked at the New Age way of being spiritual, but God is not there. Like in the New Age movement, they talk about creation and the divine spirit in that, but there's no accountability. Once again, they talk about like your God, God's in you and you're the creator of, and it's like, that's so ridiculous. I'm sorry, I didn't create the heavens and the earth, and I did not create the birds and the bees, and it's ludicrous. There is some good in it, because it is a way. There's meditation, which is a part of it, which helps to quiet your mind. It does bring you inward, but there's no accountability there. There's basically no rules. It's almost a free-for-all, with the idea that you shouldn't hurt other people, but there's so much manipulation in that takes place in the New Age movement. It's very unhealthy in its own way, from my personal experience. And so I just had kind of let it go. I just had put it out there that I was, I had been in therapy. That was one of the things the Catholic Church did do. They paid for therapy as a result of coming forward about what Gabe had done. And I was starting to try to put my life back together. Because I felt, for me, I had hit rock bottom. And it wasn't even that low or that difficult, really. And then it just, I met someone online and started talking with them. And they were a Muslim. And that didn't mean anything to me. Sent me a few lectures, and the lectures actually were of Brother Rajabali, I believe, is in Dearborn. And the first lecture that I watched, he talked about original sin, which of course, because I had had such difficulty with as a child, it was perfect. And he talked, and I think the lecture was probably 30 minutes long. And at the end, I knew that this is what I had been looking for my whole entire life, was Islam. Just from that short lecture, it was the things he talked about, it was logical. Like the original sin, and he talked about Adam and Eve and everything, and it just resonated with me. And so that was the beginning. From there, I just started watching everything I could find on YouTube. I started reading ebooks. I knew then, even though I didn't know the process to come to it, that's when I knew. But I didn't really know anyone else who was a Muslim, other than the person that I spoke with online. And even then, I started reading about the 5 pillars and about praying and stuff like that. And that was in December of 2012 that I first started, on my birthday, that I first started to learn about it. The more that I studied and the more that I learned, the more sense that it made. And I believe it was in, and I had even read about how to become a Muslim, and that it was something that I knew it was just a matter of time before I was going to take the Shahada, announce. I'm not sure the right way to describe that. It was just it wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when. And I just had a day where I was feeling really sad and lost, and I just basically just got down on my hands and knees, and I was just like, you know, help me, you know, show me what to do. It was like reconnecting with God after all those years. It was beautiful and simple. It's simple. Like, that's the beauty of Islam. It's like there are challenges, and sometimes it doesn't feel easy, but it is simple if you can let it be simple. God doesn't want us to have to struggle, and I don't believe God wants us to have to struggle and have hardships. It happens, but it's like when you have that foundation and those roots, and you can feel that connection to something outside yourself, it's never really that difficult. What the next step that happened is I wanted to learn Arabic. I bought a Quran, but it was, and it's a straight translation. There's no footnotes or anything in it. I didn't want, I wanted to just read it for myself. Some of the things that I didn't understand, but they're becoming more clear as I'm doing other study too. So I read everything that I can get my hands on. I do also have other Qurans now that have the footnotes in that, because there are some things that, being very new to it, there were some verses that needed, that I didn't quite understand. But on a whole, it was beautiful. Reading it is beautiful. Whenever I feel upset or about anything or angry, I take some time and I go and sit down, and I'll just pick up from where whichever. I try to read a chapter at a time. And when I'm feeling upset, I sit down and read, and it's instantly relaxing and calming. And somebody had recommended that to me, a sister. She's like, well, if you're just feeling upset or your kids are acting crazy, just go and sit down and, you know, read some verses, and you'll be amazed at and it's true. It's true. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. And I love to read. So I've read many things, and I've even read the Bible as a young person. And while the Bible is beautiful in its own way, and there's some amazing things in there, it's very different. And my favorite verse, and it's funny, 33 for whatever reason is a very special meaning to me. I can't even tell you why, it just does. So I think the first thing I did was, when I got my Quran, I had to wait for it to come in, as I looked up verse 33. And it's the verse about self-purification, and and that reminds me of the Gnostic path as well, the path of self-purification. And to me, that's what Islam is about. It's about self-purification. It's about to bring you closer to God. It's about purifying your thoughts and your body and your spirit and your emotions, and it guides you to that too. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Like, what beautiful message. It's like, purify yourself so that you can live that expression. And I think that's obviously, in my opinion, and I'm obviously not a scholar, and I just know the very, very, very tiniest tip of the iceberg of what Islam has to offer. But it's like, that's what the prophets were, that living example of that purity. And it was beautiful. So that 33, and that actually ties in with my favorite hadith, which is the story of the blanket. And it's so funny, because I didn't know this at the time, and I was at the Almaty Center at the children's program, because since it was the easiest way for me to come and learn some of the basic. And she reads the story of the blanket, and it's where the prophet comes to his daughter's house, and I won't tell the story, but they end up all under the blanket, and Gabriel asks God if he can come and go under the blanket as well, and God says yes. And it's in that time that he gives them the verse, the 33 about the self-purification, and it has to do with that, their family specifically. But I remember when she was reading that story, and I realized it was that verse. It was just, I don't know why, it's just very special to me. It's just very special to me. Actually, how I came to follow the path of the Ahlul Bayt is, that in itself is interesting, because many years ago, about 8 or 9 years ago, I had read a book called The Tao of Pooh, which is about Taoism based on the stories of Winnie the Pooh. I had heard about it. I'd loved the Winnie the Pooh stories as a child, and so I was like, I'm going to read this. And there was a line in that book that said, I can't remember the context of it, but it was be still and listen for the calling of the 12. And that just like, I was just like, that really resonated with me. I wrote it down and hung it on the wall, and I didn't know what it meant. I was thinking of the 12 apostles. I'm like, what's this referring to? So why does this mean something to me? And then I forgot about it. And then as I was studying more about Islam and learning a little bit about the Sunni and Shia differences, and I looked on Wikipedia of all things, I looked up Shia Islam on Wikipedia. And then I saw this thing that talked about the 12er Shias, and then I remembered that line that I had read, and I was like, that's what it meant. That this is for me. This is where I need to go. This is the direction I need to go in. And that's when I knew. And it was probably 2 months later before I actually did my Shahada at the Shia, but that was like, I just knew. And I love learning about the Imams, and especially Imam al-Mahdi, and it's fascinating to me. It resonates with me. It resonates with my heart. And Imam Ali is, of course, he's the most inspirational to me. And it was, in our culture, we get so caught up, maybe even as Muslims, we get so caught up in how things look and how many degrees we have on our wall and what car we drive and or how big our house is. And he was like the antithesis of that. Like, you know, the story where the shirt where he has, you know, he himself wears the poorly tailored shirt and gives the good shirt away to, like, that's the example that we should be following. And you know, how he fed all those people, and no one knew who was dropping the food off until after he had passed, and then the food wasn't being delivered anymore. Like, it's like, what an amazing personality, and his patience to wait. And I only know the very littlest, like, I'm only just learning. Like, I'm just learning the very barest. And of course, even like in his sons as well. It's just a never-ending example and reminder of what's really important. It's not what we think. It's not what we get. It's like the illusion of our culture of, you know, it's not that. And for me, following the Ahlul Bayt, that's my reminder for patience and for to be humble, and, you know, to give, not so that I can say, look what I did, but, you know, so that no one ever knows. It's because I'm not doing it for anyone else. And it's just, that was always missing for me. I didn't have good examples. Actually, I have 3 times that I pronounced the Shahada, which is, I guess that ties in with 3. I don't know, that's not to make 3 special, but anyways, I did it once at home. It was the day when I had just got down on my hands and knees, and I just said to God, what do I need to do? Like, how do I start to make these changes in my life that I want to make? And so obviously online there's a place where you can go and it helps you to pronounce it. And so I did it at home myself, and I didn't tell anyone, and because it was just for me, obviously. It was between myself and God. And I did it again at the Halakha night, when the first night I went to the Halakha night, and that was a little bit different because she had asked me to say something different. And at the time, I didn't know what I was agreeing to, but because everyone was looking at me and I was kind of on the spot, I just said it. But she talked about things that I didn't. It wasn't just the basic, I believe in one, you know, the one God, and that Muhammad is his last and greatest prophet. It was very long, and I didn't feel entirely comfortable, but I didn't want to say anything, and so I just went along with it. Anyways, that's what I'm going to say about that. But then I did it a 3rd time when I went to the Shia, after I talked with the sister who helped me there. And, you know, I said to her, I want to do my Shahada again, and I want to add the line about Imam Ali. And she's like, well, you don't have to do that. I said, I know, but I feel like I really want to do that. And so the sheikh was coming. He happened to be there. They have one part-time there. And I went there after, and he helped me to pronounce it. And he didn't include the line about Imam Ali. And the sister said to him, you know, that I would like to say that extra line. And he was like, oh, you don't have to do that, that meant a lot to me that he said that, because there is no, and that's my experience of being a Shia, there is no pressure. No one tells you that you have to do anything. But I was like, no, I really, really want to do this. And so I did. And then afterwards, he went behind me on one side, and he recites what is recited when a child is born. And it was very special. That was very special. It meant a lot to me. Actually, have just come to the end of my first year. It's been a year, I think, this past May. And it's been, there was like a honeymoon stage, and I had read that, like when you first convert, and I've heard other converts and reverts say that as well, that there's just this bliss, because you found something, you found this beautiful gift, and everything feels really easy. Even though since wearing hijab, I've had people be horribly rude to me, which was a surprise. And it's still disconcerting sometimes, but I realize that that's their problem, and it's their misunderstanding. And if they truly understood what Islam was, they would absolutely not have a problem with me in any way. But it's been challenging I think since like when it was actually a year since I had discovered Islam was a really difficult point for me. Like the honeymoon was over, basically. But that's also the beauty of it, is that it's okay to have these difficult times, and like it's a part of it. You can't always be happy all the time. Like, that's life. Things happen. There's challenges. But having Islam and having my daily prayers and having the support, especially of some specific sisters who, whenever, any time of the day or night I needed anything, they were there for me. It's been helpful. Having felt rootless for so many years, it's like I just feel now like I'm really starting to put roots out and building a solid foundation for my future. And Islam is fundamentally a part of that. And there's so many examples from the prophets. And if I feel lost or unsure, if I remember to take the time to read Quran or to dig a little deeper to find, what to do in this situation, or even ask the questions. There's wonderful support online for any question you could possibly have that's answered to the best of their knowledge. It's been difficult in many ways, but it's also been good. But it's life, right? There's difficulties and everything. But I'm looking forward to moving forward the rest of my life with this foundation that I have now, and I really feel like it's becoming solid. My first Ramadan was amazing, and it's been my only one so far, and I'm really looking forward to the upcoming one as well. And I knew that it was going to be good. I had done some fasting prior to get ready. I accidentally fasted the 3 days, is it Shaban? I accidentally fasted those 3 days that you were supposed to by accident, but that was my first experience with it. It's not a secret. It's well known that fasting is good for you. It's for health. If you're not feeling well, the best thing to do is you give your body a rest from digestion. Digestion takes so much energy. And so I loved it. I was concerned that I'd be able to go, because 3 days is very different than going the whole month. But inshallah, thanks to God, it was easy. It was easy for me. I loved going for iftars. I loved the community, and it just happened for me. I have 5 children. My sons are older, and I have 3 younger daughters, and it just happened through circumstances that they were away visiting for most of the month of Ramadan, and so it was easy for me that way. It was very easy for me. So it was just me on my own. I wasn't working at the time, and so obviously that made it very easy for me to follow and to not drink during the day, even when it was really hot and I was very thirsty. It was very clearing, and I loved going to the Ahmadi Center with everyone. I loved it, like the community and breaking fast with everyone and praying together. It was beautiful. unfortunately, near the end of Ramadan, I had a very, very huge personal challenge come up that tested me to the limits of my emotions, and that of trying to get my daughter back. And it looked like I wasn't ever going to see her again. And if it hadn't been for fasting and the praying and everything that I had done before, I don't think I would have gotten through it. And with the support of the sisters and that, it was amazing. And it was it's not accidental that it all happened at that time, but I don't think I would have gotten through it if it hadn't been Ramadan, if I hadn't been fasting, if I hadn't been spending all that time praying. It's a beautiful gift. Fasting is a beautiful gift. It is a prescription for health, not just physical health, but spiritual and emotional. And so I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be more challenging, obviously, this year. I'm working and with the kids and things like that, but I'm looking forward to it so much. Because you wonder, like, why do all the Muslims look so forward to Ramadan? Like, what, they don't want to eat for a month? Like, that's crazy. But it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Also, a beautiful memory is as my daughters are coming to the center, and they have a children's program now that's run by an amazing sister. She has help now too, but it's a beautiful program. And because I didn't want to force, and I don't force my children because they're not born Muslims and this is new. And so I didn't, like, there's no compulsion in religion, right? I didn't want to force them, but at the same time, I very desperately hope that they'll embrace it. And as we're going to the center, that's my advice, you need to be in community, but as we're going and they're leaving there and they're so excited, and then they're telling me stories that I don't need, like they're learning things that I don't even know yet, and they're sharing it with me. It's really exciting to see that as we're going along this journey together, they're starting to, call themselves Muslim. Like my 7-year-old daughter, when people ask, she says, "I'm a Muslim." And that just, it's like, yes, you are. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Well, actually, my message for everyone is knowledge is a good thing. So even if you're just slightly interested in Islam, or even just learning about different religions or cultures, there's beautiful stories. It's so fascinating, even like from a historical perspective, not even from a religious perspective. It's fascinating history and culture that I learned nothing about in school, less than nothing. I knew nothing, or heard negative things, but understanding how the news media works, just took it with a grain of salt. But if you're considering converting and you like to read as much as you can and ask for help. You need the help and support, because especially once the honeymoon's over, you need that community. You need to go to the centers when you can. Go to the centers, ask for help. There's so many amazing people who have dedicated their lives to helping the converts and answering the questions to the best of their knowledge. And it's just, and don't stop asking questions. Like, and that's another thing about Islam. It tells you, like it says, don't just accept, question everything, challenge everything. And at the end of the day, there's logic prevails. It's logic. It's logical. It's scientific and logical. How can you argue with that? But you need help. And my advice for people who have been Muslim for a very long time is, to understand that as converts, it's overwhelming at times. And, we're doing our best to follow the rules, but, having not lived most of my life following these rules, I forget. Like I'll reach out to shake a brother's hand. And I don't mean any offense, but but I do understand that, it's inappropriate. And I certainly don't want to offend anyone, but it's like, have some patience. And no, I don't speak Arabic, and I would love to, but if I don't say my greetings properly, perhaps, you could just have some patience, or if some of my hair is poking out, that it's okay. And just patience and love, which I have mostly experienced, but, sometimes people take it for granted when they've 50, 60 years have lived their life this way, and they understand the ins and outs.